The Art of War, Chapter 2, Waging War. Welcome back to our deep dive into The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Today, we're moving on to Chapter 2, Waging War. Despite the title, this chapter isn't about battlefield tactics. It's about something far more sobering, the cost of war. Sun Tzu makes two central points here. First, war is incredibly expensive, both in money and in time. If you fight, you must fight fast. Second, a wise general understands that cost and will use the enemy's resources to supply his own forces. Part 1. War is a contest of resources. Sun Tzu opens with a hard calculation. In the operations of war, when you have 1,000 war chariots, 1,000 supply wagons, and an army of 100,000 men, with provisions carried 1,000 li, the expenses at home and abroad, the cost of guests, glue and lacquer, the upkeep of chariots and armor. 1,000 pieces of gold a day. Only then can 100,000 strong army move. That's just to get them started. He adds, one war can drain 7/10 of the people's wealth and 6/10 of the state's treasury. In other words, no matter how rich your nation, you can't afford endless wars of expansion. Part 2. Emperor Wu of Han, a costly lesson. Take Emperor Wu of Han. When he took the throne, he inherited a full treasury from the peaceful rule of Wen and Jing. But his endless campaigns burned through it all. When the treasury ran dry, he taxed the wealthy, then taxed property, still not enough. Finally, he lowered the head tax age to 3 years old. The result? In despair, some parents killed their own children before they turned 3, just to survive. In his later years, Emperor Wu issued the famous Repentance Edict of Luntai, admitting, "Since I ascended the throne, my actions have been reckless and perverse, bringing sorrow and suffering to all under heaven. From this day on, all policies that harm the people are to be abolished." For such a proud ruler to condemn himself like this shows how close the nation was to collapse. Part 3. The Hidden Cost, Logistics. Sun Tzu also says, a wise general makes provisions from the enemy. 1 bushel of the enemy's grain is worth 20 of ours. Why? Because the other 19 bushels represent transport cost. Ancient supply chains were brutal. No trains, no trucks, just ox carts, guarded by soldiers, crawling for months toward the front. If you set out with 20 carts of grain, by the time you arrived, half was eaten. Not by the soldiers at the front, but by the transport teams, their oxen, and the return trip. This is why Sun Tzu, a general whose own career came from war, keeps saying, don't fight unless you must. Part 4. Lowering the cost, disruptive innovation in war. Management thinker Peter Drucker once said, all disruptive innovation cuts cost by at least 30%. The same is true in war. 2 leaders stand out for dramatically lowering war costs. Genghis Khan. First, Genghis Khan. If Emperor Wu had tried to fight his way to Europe, the grain ratio might have been 1,200 to 1. Genghis, his costs were minimal. He fought along the grasslands. His horses never lacked pasture. His troops ate beef and mutton, not grain, and the sheep marched with the army, producing food on the move. Napoleon's People's War. Then there's Napoleon. He didn't just cut supply costs, he slashed the cost of human life. Napoleon launched the era of the People's War. Instead of expensive mercenaries, he mobilized the entire French nation. His manpower was essentially free and limitless. Clausewitz wrote, other nations fought with limited armies and limited taxes. France fought with the full weight of its entire people, at 0 marginal cost. Napoleon even boasted he could lose 30,000 men in a month and replace them instantly. Kings could never do that. Part 5. The Role of Propaganda. British strategist J.F.C. Fuller noted, a conscript nation is sustained by intense propaganda, and the most powerful message? Hatred. Hatred propaganda fuels fighting spirit. In ancient wars, propaganda was almost non-existent. By the age of revolutionary wars, it became a massive, deliberate tool, one that fundamentally changed the cost structure of war. Part 6. 3 Principles from Sun Tzu. From Waging War, Sun Tzu gives us 3 rules. If you can win but cannot afford it, don't fight. Seize the enemy's resources whenever possible. Value swift victory over prolonged campaigns. Part 7. Lessons for life and business. From war to work, the principles hold. First, when aiming for a goal, consider whether the cost makes it feasible. Second, always study your cost structure and look for disruptive innovations that can bring it down. That's waging war. In our next episode, we'll explore Chapter 3 of The Art of War, Attack by Stratagem.